Cowboys versus Lions, man. Morning after. Let's talk about it. We are live on every platform from A to Z Sports Dallas. You might be watching us on TikTok. You might be watching on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Welcome into the show. Let's talk about this game, man. Obviously, we're upset. And we're going to talk about why this feels like the Cowboys showing us their true colors, honestly, versus the Lions. Let's just call it what it is, man. And I said it last week when the Cowboys beat the Kansas City Chiefs. I told you, if you want to buy into their playoff hopes, this is the moment to do so. And that lasted a week. And it's tough because these were not new issues that were popping up for the Cowboys. These were not new issues at all. These were the same issues that got the Cowboys into a 3-5-1 hole at the bye week. It is what it is. And what I mean by that is, you saw that defense play, and when you watch the replay, trust me, it's going to feel even worse. Because what you're going to see is Kenneth Murray taking himself out of place consistently at linebacker. You're going to see a cornerback room that feels like you've got none ready or none game day ready players on the field. And let's take a closer look. I cannot be too hard on Savon Rebel Jr. going up against the likes of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams. Savon Rebel Jr., as talented as I think he is and as good as I think he's going to be in the future, wasn't healthy to play football 1 month ago. And you're putting all your chips on Savon Rebel Jr. because that's the way your roster is built. Because the alternative is Trick Bridges, right? The alternative is rushing Trevon Diggs back from injury, probably. This is how you build your team. The nickel cornerback is Reddy Stewart. And don't get me wrong, I think Reddy Stewart has exceeded expectations most of the season. But if you're going to put him one-on-one against Amon-Ra St. Brown from the Lions, you cannot expect to win that matchup, can you? Shout out to the TikTok audience, by the way. I see you joining around here. We've got a separate camera for TikTok. Shout out to all of you guys joining the show. Reddy Stewart was not on the team in the preseason. He was claimed off waivers at the end of August and shoved into a starting role pretty much. We've known this about Kenneth Murray going back to the linebackers. We've known how much he struggled this year, yet he continues to be on the field, and I cannot figure out why. We knew all this about the Cowboys defense. They had 3 decent games back to back. And the fact that 2 of those were against the Chiefs and the Eagles, the 2 teams that were on the Super Bowl back in February, gave us some hope, honestly. We talked about the 5-man front. The Cowboys started playing with 5 defensive linemen, trying to figure things out that way, and it worked for a while, but then you started seeing glimpses of how offenses could attack that with the Chiefs. The Chiefs started throwing the football a lot to the flats, kind of forcing players to make tackles in open space and taking advantage of the fact that if you have 5 defensive linemen, that likely means you're going to have 4 guys underneath in underneath zone coverage, right? And that means if you miss 1 tackle, you're going to pay for it. And the Cowboys consistently paid for those missed tackles, for those poorly taken angles against the Lions. You know what? You know why? Because that's a speedy team. That's a team that is going to punish you if you don't take the proper angles, if you're not ready to tackle, if you don't do that. Now, that's on one hand. The defense, I think, again, reminded us of all of the problems. On the coaching side of things, Matt Eberflus reminded us why we were complaining over and over again about him. Because there were 2 things we knew going into this game. We knew the Lions' offensive line was banged up, and we knew that Jared Goff is one of the players, the quarterbacks in the NFL, that drops off when he is under pressure. He's a good quarterback when things look clean, and he's a good quarterback overall. But if you take a look at players whose production drops off when under pressure, and you look at the difference between being under pressure and not being under pressure, Jared Goff is one of those guys that you have questions about. Do you think Matt Eberflus went into this ball game trying to blitz the Lions a lot? He should have. He didn't, though. Here's the thing about a banged up offensive line. When you've got players all, moved around there, it's difficult to communicate because that offensive line does not have chemistry, because that offensive line is not used to being on the field 5 guys together. And when you blitz someone, it's not only about having that one extra pass rusher, it's about forcing the offensive line to communicate. How are we going to pick it up? How are we going to block it up? Where are we going to slide? What is the running back going to do in this pass pro scheme? It's about all that. The Cowboys did not blitz Jared Goff, and that was a reminder of how frustrating Matt Eberflus can be as a defensive coordinator at times. His scheme might work when he's got the players, when he's got the talent. Right now, you don't have that talent, in my opinion, and the Cowboys are paying for it. Now, on the offensive side of things, man, this felt like a game in which you were just out-coached. It feels to me that the Cowboys talked about the George Pickens land all week long. We talked about the George Pickens land. The Lions were sitting on it. And by the way, apologies for my dog if he's barking. He's probably pissed off about Schottenheimer and Matt Eberflus and the entire Cowboys team right now. So shout out to my dog. Apologies for his barking. It is what it is. He's going crazy right now. Anyways, you gotta appreciate the dog joining in with the complaints about, Schottenheimer and Matt Eberflus. We've got Adam C over here saying dog is fired up about the Cowboys as well. I mean, we all are at this moment. But all kidding aside, man, and back to what we were saying, we were talking a lot about the George Pickens land, and it feels like the Lions were as well, because the Lions were sitting on it, and the Lions pretty much took it away. The only catch that we saw from George Pickens on his land route on last night was when he had that face mask, so it didn't even matter, right? That's on one hand. On the other, one of the things that the Cowboys have done consistently to make up for the issues that you have at offensive tackle is let's get into play action looks, let's get into 21 personnel type looks, and let's try to do max protect. Let's do play action. Let's give Dak Prescott a lot of time for him to go for the deep shot with CeeDee Lamb, with George Pickens. And the Lions seemed like they were ready for it. I have not watched the All 22 yet, but watching the live broadcast on TV, it felt to me like this Lions team was ready for it. There's one Brian Branch play where he's kind of like running horizontally and trying to patiently wait for his gap. And he's not blitzing really aggressively going downfield, but it seems like the Lions were ready for those situations where, okay, they're trying to get into max protect. And if this tight end does not come out into a route or the running back does not release into a route, I'm going to wait until the last second to really rush the passer and take away those deep shots. Seems like we're going to see a lot of that on film when we get to it. Again, I have not watched it, but that was my impression watching live. That's what that felt like. Felt like a team that was unprepared, if I'm being honest with you. I find it hard to complain about an offense when there are 30 points on the board, when there's over, I think it was, what was it, like over, I can get the stats here, but it was a high yardage number for the Cowboys. I find it hard to complain about the offense, but there was still so much left on the table, right? There was still so much left in that table, man. And what I mean by that is CeeDee Lamb should have had that touchdown. Dak Prescott missed him. We should have gotten that pass interference, set the Cowboys up on a goal line situation, but Jake Ferguson had that holding. You turned the ball over 3 times. It was 417 yards for the Cowboys. It was more than the Lions had. So I cannot really complain about the offense and tell you, hey man, this is why we lost. But dude, they left so much on the table as well. There were so many missed opportunities. I understand the frustration with the George Pickens effort. I don't want to overreact to it because we've seen him be locked in all year long, at least during game time. I'm not going to say that he was locked in the day before the Raiders game, right? Because we know what happened. But he's been locked in when the lights are on. Yesterday did not quite feel like that. I don't want to overreact to it again, but it's like, why don't you extend your arms and try to reach for the football late in the game? Why did it feel like at times those routes were not really being run with that intensity that we've seen all year long? I think the questions are fair on that front, and I guess we'll see as time goes on, man. But let me dive into the comments, man. Let's see what's in your mind. I want to read from you, man. I want to know what you guys are thinking. Over on the TikTok side of things, Kayla says, we started out looking at okay when they blitzed. And I agree, man. I agree with that. Tackles struggled. Man, tackles where both Nate Thomas and Terrence Steele, the only word that I can use for that is they were outclassed. They did not belong on the football field. And you know what? We talk a lot about the NFL draft, and we talk a lot about we got to go all defense. Hey, the Cowboys got to go all defense. Dude, who are your tackles for 2026? Who is going to block Dak Prescott in 2026? Because what you've got ain't enough. And that goes for everyone, dude. That goes for everyone. Isaac says, way too many self-inflicted wounds this game. That's absolutely right, bro. Absolutely right. Let's see over on the Facebook side of things. What do we've got? We've got Sylvester saying, defensive coach needs to know when to arrest the quarterback, not sit back and wait too much time giving the quarterback. The coach defense needs to go bye-bye. Listen, that's going to be a huge decision for the Cowboys this offseason. What are you going to do about Matt Eberflus? Because I'll tell you what, a few weeks ago, Jerry Jones went on the radio, and Jerry Jones was like, you know what I really don't like about the last few years? I haven't liked the lack of continuity at defensive coordinator. That's what he said. He said, one of my regrets is having 1 year Mike Zimmer and letting Dan Quinn go that early. And you know what that kind of suggests? That kind of suggests he doesn't want to do it anymore. That kind of suggests he wants some continuity at defensive coordinator. And I ain't too excited about that. I'm going to be honest with you. I am not too excited about that little comment from Jerry Jones. That felt like he's setting things up. He's setting things up for us to get into January. And I can hear him. I can hear Jerry Jones talk, I swear. I can hear him on 105.3 The Fan going, we saw the improvement when Quinnen Williams arrived. So we think Matt Eberflus can be that coach that we've seen in previous stops of his career with better talent. And I'm not sure he can, dude. With that kind of talent, maybe he can. I'm not going to bet on the Cowboys to get that talent, though. I am not going to bet on the Cowboys going all in free agency until I see it with my own eyes. Because people like to talk about the draft, and I get it. The draft is super fun. I'm a huge draft aficionado. But, dude, you're going to have to get busy on March. Beyond any potential George Pickens deal, you're going to have to get busy in March. People like to say, what about next year? Are we going to be good? Man, talk to me in March. Let's see what this Cowboys team does in free agency, dude. Let's see, man. Let's see. Joshua here in TikTok, he says, bad game all around, but I wonder if early in game, Pickens landed crazy. I wonder if he got hurt. Man, I don't know. I'm not sure. That's a good question, dude. He did fall funny. It was weird. The play where the other Lions defender got hurt. But, man, over here, Ernest is saying on the Facebook chat, saying George Pickens was jogging. Daniel says, George Pickens had a wide open catch and he didn't even go for it. Shake my head. Dude, you know what? I'm with you. I hate to say it because I hate to be in this position where George Pickens has been killing it for the Cowboys all year long. And I hate to get into this situation where it's just one game and we're all like, that's Steelers, George Pickens. That's that Pittsburgh kid. That's that guy that people were warning us about. I hate to get into that mindset one bad game into George Pickens' season in Dallas or career in Dallas. I don't want to do that. But I also look at Daniel's comment here. Dude, I cannot disagree with Daniel. Daniel is right. We saw it. Late in the game, George Pickens, the football almost hits his foot. And if it's hitting your foot, man, dude, that means you can put your hands there. That means my hands can't go there. And George Pickens doesn't even extend his arms, doesn't even go for it. The jogging is a little bit more complicated because you never know how much nuance there is to a route, how much you want to catch your guy off guard and all that. I know Jesse Holley, shout out to Jesse, he went on Twitter and he was like, this is how he's been running routes all season. So I don't know what people are talking about. And hey, I respect Jesse Holley's opinion. He's a former NFL wide receiver. He knows more about route running than I do. But still, it's weird. It was a weird day for George Pickens. Absolutely was. There's no denying it, man. There is no denying it. Chris says, with the play by Pickens, I feel like we need to let him go. Oh, man. Man, I get the frustration. This is the territory that I don't really want to get into because we've seen so many good things from Pickens, effort-wise, attitude-wise. We've seen sounds from the sideline, the mic'd up series that the Cowboys do on their social media, and we've seen how teammates respond to George Pickens. They love that guy. But I understand where this is coming from Chris. Sorry, I'll finish reading the comment. He says, I feel like we need to let him go, pick up a young wide receiver in the NFL draft for way cheaper. Pickens is great, but it's when he wants to be. A young guy might come in and give 100% all the time. The thing is, what I think the Cowboys should do with George Pickens is keep him. I'm not going to lie. I love what we've seen from George Pickens, and I'm willing to take that risk. But to Chris's point, if this repeats itself over the next 4-game stretch, where there's a very likely scenario where, let's say you lose next game, and you're done. Right now, you're pretty close to being done, but you're not done. You're not mathematically done. Let's say they lose next week, or they lose 2 weeks from now. What we see from George Pickens in this final 4-game stretch is going to be very important because if you have questions about his effort in some of these remaining games, is that the kind of thing that makes you go, we'll keep him because he's great, but we're just going to franchise tag him. We're not going to get that engagement ring out yet. We're going to keep dating him. We're going to maybe move in with that franchise tag, but we're not spending month's salary in a rock just yet. We're not going to go with a long-term deal just yet. Is that the kind of thing that you're looking out for, right, in his next 4 games? But again, I hesitate to go into that discourse of, is this George Pickens from Pittsburgh? Because he's been so locked in for most of the year. Again, when the lights are on. Now, Cam says over here on the YouTube chat, he says the defense always sucked. And man, dude, that was the first point of the show, so I agree with Cam. It feels like we already knew this about the Cowboys defense, and then we just kind of got a reminder for it. Cedric says, my Cowboys got spanked. Feels like it for sure. Shout out to Cedric. Kalos also said on the TikTok chat, he was like, hey, special teams were horrible last night. Dude, let's break it down. Let's talk a little bit about special teams. I'm getting pissed off over here. I'm going to give you a stat from Bobby Belt. Bobby Belt from 105.3 The Fan. We all know him. He's awesome. Bobby Belt tweeted this out a few hours ago. Bobby Belt tweeted that before the Eagles game, the NFL had gone through a 2,226 5-day span in which only one NFL player, in only one instance, was flagged for an invalid fair catch signal. And in a 12-day span, we're talking about over 200 days, only one invalid fair catch signal in the NFL. And then in a 12-day span, Kevontae Turpin does it twice? Bro, what? That's unacceptable for any player in the NFL. should not be called for an unfair or invalid fair catch signal in a 12-day span. No player should be in that situation. But I'm going to tell you who that applies to for even more. The guy that wouldn't be on the team if he wasn't a returner. Because Kevontae Turpin would not be on your 53-man roster if he was not a returner. He's an all-pro caliber kick returner. And what? He doesn't know the rules? Because let's talk about the rule, by the way. The NFL rulebook says a fair catch signal is fully extending your arm and waving it from side to side clearly. And then it reads, any other motion, literally anything else that isn't a full extension, waving side to side, is invalid. The rule is built so you don't try to deceive the opponent. The NFL doesn't want you to deceive your opponent in that instance. And Turpin did it twice. Brian Schottenheimer talked to reporters and he was like, dude, he cannot do that. He knows better. And then you parlay that with the struggles on kickoff coverage. The only positive thing right now about the Cowboys special teams is Brandon Aubrey, who, by the way, freaking legend. Freaking legend. Kickoff coverage was terrible, though. The Lions were starting near midfield every single time. It was crazy. You have a bad defense and you don't even help it out, man. Anyways, guys, the Cowboys drop to 6-6-1. Their playoff chances dropped to 8%. For those of you who are looking for hope, your hope is that the Cowboys win out, I guess. That the Eagles collapse completely and lose their next 3 of their next 5 games, starting on Monday night versus the Chargers. You need that one to be a loss. That's your biggest hope. But man, I'm going to ask you before we get out of here, what do we think is going to happen in the playoffs, man, if they make it? Because for a second there, we thought we had a defense, like a viable defense. That's the word we used last Friday when we talked here in this live stream. They reminded us pretty quickly that that's not a viable defense. And there is so much more to say. And we will say it here at A to Z Sports Dallas. We will have articles about it over at atozsportsdallas.com. Appreciate you guys joining the stream. Appreciate you guys. Thanks so much. I hope that you enjoy your weekend. Forget about the Cowboys, maybe for a day or two. Don't think about it. Enjoy the family. Enjoy the friends. Go out. Have some fun. Play some video games. I know I'm going to play a lot of Ark Raiders over the next 3 days. It's going to be fun. Going to see some friends as well. Hope that you guys enjoy the rest of your weekend. Appreciate you on the TikTok side. Appreciate you on Facebook. Appreciate you, Cedric. Appreciate the comment, my man. And I'll see you next Friday live, but I'll see you throughout the week. I'll see you throughout the week with these shorts that we've been doing. Thank you for engaging. Thank you for being around and supporting A to Z Sports Dallas, man. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.